What is up? Thank you for joining me today. This is Kevin Lackey with the RFN podcast, and I will be your host. And today I have a guest that's joining me that I know will be a ton of fun to talk with and will bring tremendous value to everyone listening. Her name is Jill Young, a.k.a. Jilla the Killa, because that is what she is. She is an absolute killer when it comes to bringing value, bringing information, bringing guidance as it's related to entrepreneurship, leadership, management skills, and all these other things that we talk about on the RFN podcast. So first and most importantly, Jill, welcome to the RFN podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Kevin, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I can't wait.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know we've had to schedule back and forth. You're just extremely busy, got a lot going on, and it's hard to do, so I appreciate you making time because, you know, my goal has always been on this podcast is to try to bring information from a variety of people, diversity of different experiences, but from people who I know can bring a lot of value. And you and I have known each other for about 2 years now, maybe just over 2 years.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah, about right. And so I've had the opportunity to really get to know you over the last 2 years as you being our coach for Freedom Power Sports in our leadership team for those 2 years. Right.
Yes,
so
that's always an adventure.
Always an adventure. And so I know that the value in your experience can bring the audience just tremendous value. And so I really appreciate, again, you being here. But so I'm going to give just a little bit of background on what I know about you as it relates to the business and to, some of the things that you do outside of just the coaching and implementation of the EOS system, which we will talk about. And you can kind of fill in the gaps that you want people to know about your experience and your background, if that sounds good. Is that cool?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so you are an author. You just wrote a new book called Encourage. Congratulations on that.
I did. Thank you.
And
you're in the book too, Kevin.
I'm in the book?
Yeah. You're in there a couple of times.
Really?
So does that mean you haven't read the book yet?
I have not read the book. So I support it and I tell other people to read it, but I am not a great reader. So I am super pumped. I did not know that, and I can't wait to hear. Tell me, what am I in there about?
I know. You're in there a couple of times, you and Freedom Power Sports. The book format is really just a collection of my observations over the last 500 sessions with clients.
Holy cow.
And there's just some kind of mindset where when teams go into making a change in their culture and their business, there's a mindset where they succeed in making that shift. And then what I did find is that about 15% of the companies I started working with, they just didn't. They just didn't succeed. And so I really went into an exploration of what is it that makes those companies succeed. So, Freedom Power Sports is obviously one of those success stories, right? Work in progress, always.
Absolutely.
You guys just had the right mindset. So you're in there a couple of times. I'll have to think about specifically where it is.
Well, that's okay. I think that's cool. And what you're talking about is some of the questions that I actually have lined up to talk about is just what are some of those things that you see, like traits in companies and leadership that makes, that you see that people are being successful using the system. So I'm excited to kind of talk about that.
A lot to talk about. Awesome.
And so you are an author of the book, you're a professional speaker, and you're an EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System Implementer or Coach, which is, again, how we met. And you live here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and you coach and do this EOS implementation. And I guess that being an implementer, EOS implementer, which we'll define, and I've talked about on my podcast some, so people will kind of be familiar with the term, but that means that you coach leadership teams on how to come together and strengthen communication, deal with issues, and really define who and what the company is about. Is that an accurate description?
It is, and we like to think about it it very simply, right? Because
Yep.
Kevin, everything we do is simple,
Yeah.
but in very simple terms, EOS is really just a collection of very basic, simple business tools that do three things for your business. We call those three things vision, traction, and healthy. And
Yep.
vision is just really getting everybody to agree on where we're going and how we're going to get there. Traction is discipline and accountability,
Yep.
which you're big into discipline and
Yes.
accountability. And then healthy, that's where you really get the communicating team that's just very cohesive. And then really pretty soon, after about 2 years, you've got the whole company aligned around the vision. They've got traction habits and everybody's healthy. But that's it in a nutshell.
Do you have, I'm just curious, as you're talking about this, and I've asked you this question before, I think, but do you see this system harder to implement on different size or different ranges of companies? Like the 2-year mark, is that good for a 25-person organization or a 10-person organization, but really hard for like a 300-person organization like ours to do in the 2-year mark?
So the 2-year mark is part of the EOS process.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, we love that Pareto principle of 80-20. So 80% of the time you work yourself through 10 sessions over 2 years. 80% of the time you're going to go thumbs up, we're good.
Yeah.
And then really the beauty of the coaching that I do is I actually get out of the way and let you run it.
Yeah.
That other 20% of the time, and this is just what I've observed, some companies are done faster.
Yeah.
So 10% of the time they're done faster. And the size is not as important as the growth rate.
Okay.
So the growth rate is really two things. Number one, your personal growth rate, which I know you guys love.
Yeah.
Because if the leaders are not willing to grow, the tools, it's really hard for them to implement the tools at a deep level, far and wide within the whole company.
Okay.
But then also growth rate, as I've been working with this one company in Cleveland for 3.5 years, but they're growing so fast that everything is changing, and there's new issues every single quarter.
Yeah.
So if you're a company who just really wants to organize and get structured, and here we are, then 2 years is great.
Yeah.
And then I just back away.
Okay.
Other companies just keep on growing, and they need
a new set of issues,
value in a coach, to keep going.
Okay.
That's about right.
So you and I, we met because I was introduced to the book Traction by Gino Wickman, which is kind of what we're talking about, this system and process. And about a month after me trying to read the book and use YouTube, I'm trying to get clarity on all the different tools, and I was struggling with it. So I just, I had, I guess, been introduced to you. We didn't get to talk, but introduced to you as being a coach in the area and all these other things, or implementer, and I'm like, I'm just going to hire a professional at this to help us implement it, which was the best decision I ever made. But that's how we met. And the biggest reason is because I knew that I needed a coach for clear direction and accountability for me personally. And so, like I said, you've been coaching us for about 2 years now. How long have you been an EOS implementer?
So I have been a trained implementer for 5.5 years now. Okay. Before that, I implemented for the company I was with for about another 1.5 years.
Okay.
Yep. And I've been doing this full time for 5.5 years.
Okay. And so what was kind of your experience leading up to you making the big jump into being a full-time trained implementer?
Well, it's a fun story. It's a fun story in my mind anyway. It was a painful story while I was going through it, as is entrepreneurialism. What do you like to say, Kevin? You get punched in the face? Is that how we say it here on the RFN podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I like getting punched in the face. Getting punched in the face. Yeah, it's like getting paid twice because
getting paid twice.
Yeah,
yes.
Because you learn the lesson, and then you learn what not to do. I mean, getting punched in the face is a really necessary thing.
That's what this life is like.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. So I had not yet learned that lesson.
Okay.
I had a very successful career, grew up in an entrepreneurial company where my dad was my boss, but he also gave me a lot of freedom with the business. No pun intended.
No.
Freedom.
Freedom's everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's church.
Freedom. Go freedom.
Every time I hear freedom, someone says something like freedom, I quietly say to myself, power sports.
Power sports.
Yeah, right behind it. As soon as I hear something freedom, I go power sports, just to myself. Yeah.
That's good. I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
So Dad gave me a lot of freedom to experiment with the businesses. And so I got a lot of experience really early on, which was great. Well, as I moved my way through my career, we're going to fast forward. I found myself as president of a CPA firm.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pause for a little bit and let your audience laugh.
Yeah. If they'd have to know you to laugh at that.
That's right.
Yeah.
They'd have to know me. So I'm not a CPA, but I found myself as president of a CPA firm. One thing led to another, and we were growing really fast because we had figured out what clients want from their CPA, like go figure.
Yeah.
So I had not yet learned the joy that, being punched in the face is fun.
Yeah.
You get paid twice. And so I was lamenting to a friend one day because I was just starting to drop the ball. And I said, his name's John. I said, John, apparently I'm just not very good at running businesses. I must suck at this. I'm going to go work at Taco Bell. That's always my backup job because you get free chalupas.
Yeah. The cinnamon twist, man.
Oh my gosh, those are to die for. Extra calories at the gym every morning for us. We eat too many twisties. So I said, I'm just not very good at this. So I must just have to go find something else to do because I just keep dropping the ball and not working anymore. And he said to me, which was so powerful. He said, Jill, there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with your system. Yeah. And he handed me the book. He handed me the book Traction, just like someone handed you the book Traction, Kevin.
Yep.
That's how people find EOS.
Yeah.
Is somebody hands them the book. So I read the book and I implemented it at the firm, and things started to grow again and they felt fun again. And pretty soon I loved the system so much. I fell in love with the system, not the CPA firm. So I left the CPA firm to do this full time. And now here I am. 500 sessions later, I'm probably working on 600 sessions now.
Golly. That's a lot of businesses. Right? That's a lot of
It's a lot. That's a lot.
What do you think?
My son reminded me of that. And I know you love 10X and mastery. So there's that number out there, 10,000 hours is mastery. Yeah. And when I hit 500 sessions earlier this spring, Dylan, who's 13, reminded me, you're not even close to 10,000, Mom. Wow. You're not even reaching mastery, and how it's so, I love that number because it keeps me so humble. Yeah. That I still am reaching for mastery. Kevin, I love working with your team because your team teaches me stuff. And I always want to be that kind of coach where I'm always teaching, but I'm also learning right alongside you. So in your experience, knowing that you're an awesome coach and you understand the system very well, because you've helped us tremendously, and I think you said it earlier, but it's important that the team is willing to accept and own and be coached and all those things. What's been the success rate of those 500 or 600 different clients as it relates to their willingness or unwillingness to learn and grow and be a part of what you're trying to teach them? How many of them do you think just I hate to use the word failed, but didn't stick with the system or didn't implement it correctly, or they didn't really take it as serious? You're saying freedom is one of the success stories. How many people are not successful, and what do you think the biggest reasons for that is? Well, I'm going to give you a high-level answer, and then I'm going to give you some deeper shit. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Right. So high level, what I see is about 20% of the companies that start the journey. Like they come here, we have a focus day, we have a vision building day, but 20% of the companies, I feel, and this is a really important statement, I feel, me, Jill,
Yep.
I feel like they gave up too soon.
Okay.
They quit. We just call it, they quit. They try to call it, I graduated, or we've got everything we want from you. I just personally call it, you just quit.
Yeah.
That would be a retreat.
Yeah. They failed
Right?
themselves.
The bad side of retreat.
That's right.
In my opinion. Now that's high level, 20%. But here's the thing that I have learned as a coach. It is not my opinion that counts. Kevin, there are companies out there that all they want from running on EOS is the mechanical pieces.
Yeah.
And your company went through this phase too. I hope I can be vulnerable.
Of
your
course,
company went
very much.
too, where you went, oh my gosh, we know how to run a level 10 meeting. We're good.
Yeah.
And you are. Here's the thing. You are good. You're in this mechanical phase where you know how to push all the buttons.
Yep.
Like you know how to work Excel. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
But do you really know the power of what Excel can give from you? No. And so there are company, but here's the thing. Who am I to judge that for that, for company ABC, that was failure? That's all they wanted.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I'm like, okay, thumbs up.
Yeah.
Now, personally, Kevin, that those companies that just want to be mechanical, I don't find personal enjoyment and satisfaction from working with them.
Yeah.
That next level, you go through these levels. The next level is now you're methodical. And so you've got the mechanics, but they're just kind of second nature and you're going about it. But what I'm really looking for, what I really find passion in coaching is those companies who are looking for mastery.
Yeah.
And Kevin, mastery never ends. And
Yep.
so I love to coach those teams who just say, we've got the mechanics down, we've got the methods down, but now, Jill, what we need from you is to take us 1% further.
Yeah, because that 1% is huge.
That 1% is the mastery, because you've got to do it every single day, every issue. You're asking yourself, are we taking massive action?
Yeah, so I actually, one of my questions was, what is the cost to an organization that is running, okay, but not anywhere near their potential by, not having the tools and the implementation of those tools done correctly? I mean, is that, in your opinion, like an unmeasurable cost, like to the bottom line and to the health of the organization?
Yeah, well, most likely it is, because number one, I'm a scientist at heart. And so we don't have, a data set to compare it to and all of that good stuff. Jim Collins, Good to Great, is the very best data set I've ever seen on that, which, he's a huge influencer of mine. But I would call it, when you say, what is the cost? What I'm looking at now in the world is opportunity cost. There is so much opportunity out there that, just my humble opinion, there has never been the amount of opportunity that there is right now.
Yeah. For people to take charge or just like to be organized.
Well, the opportunity, right. There's just tons of economic opportunity, but when you don't get your company fully ready to embrace it, then that's when your competitor is going to do it, or nobody does it, and the world doesn't get that opportunity that you could have created. So it's a little bit woo-woo for you.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I guess it's just, it's the reality is that it's an unmeasurable cost to the health of the organization, to the bottom line, the opportunities. I talk about that in one of the podcasts, is you can never measure the amount of opportunities that you miss that you don't know about, right? And that's just from not being prepared, understanding the mechanics, being methodical, being strategic. And so, I want to talk about, while we're on here, just a couple things. What is your new book, since that's like one of the most current things that you've done, and I know that you're excited about it? What is Encourage, kind of at a high level? What is the purpose of that book for you?
So the purpose of the book is really a gift. It's a gift to entrepreneurial companies just like yours, Kevin, who are either thinking about their massive change.
Yeah.
They're massive change. And, sometimes they think, well, we're doing pretty good. We don't need a massive change. But the reason I use massive is because what we find is that once people do implement EOS, they get massive change, whether they were looking for it or not.
Okay.
And the massive doesn't, it's not always in numbers, because you got like, what kind of change do you need to make? But a massive change in culture, a massive change in the desire for personal growth, a massive change in your recruiting, because you're a better company, so you're recruiting better. So whatever that means to you, but even if they don't think they need the massive change, it happens.
Yeah.
So this is like right out there, the tools will change your organization. And so it's a gift to people who are looking at running on EOS, but it's also a gift to those companies who have possibly been running on EOS for about a year.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember your year point, and maybe if I really think about it, you guys maybe hit this about 8 months in, but it's that J curve where it gets worse before it gets better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's emotionally hard. And so I sometimes think, wow, how do companies really do this without a coach?
Yeah.
I know Kevin and I have had lots of deep heart to hearts, because it's not easy. And so really for those companies who are in that bottom part of the J curve,
mm-hmm.
and they're like, what are the things I need to be watching for to really make sure we pull this out of the J curve and keep going?
Yeah.
So that's the reason I wrote it. That's who it is for. And then really the structure of the book follows the courage mindset, I named it.
Okay.
And what I realized is that every time somebody stops, or what we call, they quit,
mm-hmm.
and they really haven't reached that mastery phase, what's keeping them from moving to the next phase in their journey is fear.
Yeah.
And there's so many of these little fears that are going on. So I really investigated that for about a year before I put the book together. And then flipping fear on the flip side.
Yeah.
What I realized is that this courage really came in 3 forms. And the first form is the courage to be disciplined, because my gosh, it takes a lot of effort to not answer your phone while you're in a meeting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just discipline.
Yeah.
But it takes courage.
Yeah.
It's not a habit. It really takes some courage. The second one is the courage to lighten up.
Yeah.
Because what I found is the companies who are quitting were taking themselves way too seriously, but they weren't taking this work serious enough.
Okay.
Take the work serious. Take your numbers serious, but yourself, you got to lighten up.
Yeah.
Right. The companies, Kevin, we have a lot of fun in the session room when your teams come here to visit me. And the teams who can just laugh at themselves, at their mistakes, and say, oh, we screwed up, and now back to work. It seems like they succeed.
Yeah.
They succeed. And then the third one is the courage to experiment. So there's a lot of teams out there who are just holding on to the past, and they're fearful of trying something new, because they think if they try something new, they have to do that new thing forever.
Yeah.
And it's just this mindset of, well, let's try this. Oh, that didn't work. Now let's try that. Okay, that didn't work. Let's modify that and try something again. So the courage to experiment. Those are the three big areas that are in the book.
Yeah, I mean that is a good explanation, because I haven't read it, and in courage, having the courage, the way you describe it, to be disciplined, is really critical, right? Because that's the biggest challenge. Like I've been saying for a long time, I want a company culture of discipline. I want the company culture to be fun and caring and all those things, but I want a culture of discipline. Because that is, to me, one of the hardest things to master, and to hear it in terms of you have to have the courage to be disciplined. It's meaningful. It kind of goes along with the saying, if you know better, do better.
Ooh, that's good.
I've been telling myself that a lot whenever I want to get so if I am in a meeting that's not a EOS structured meeting, I will pull my phone out and allow messages and just distractions.
Yep.
And it's like, well, I know better than, so why am I not doing better, right? That's how that's how I'm talking myself into discipline. It's like, if you know better, do better. It's really no different than someone who smokes. If you know better, if you know that it's going to kill you, like, do better. If you know healthy eating habits, if you know better, do better. If you know that talking to someone is going to get you this result, if you know better because you've experienced the results of something, then do better, right? So if you know better, do better.
It also reminds me that we are a product of our environment.
Yes.
We are a product of our environment. And when you go into a situation that is less disciplined than you're used to, you're going to go, oh, okay, well, this place is a shit show. So I'm just going to sit back and act shit show.
Yeah. But if you know better, you better do better.
Sometimes one of the hardest things in EOS is to get used to this discipline.
Yeah.
And I hear teams, and especially visionaries, they'll say to me, they're like, it feels to me, Jill, like this system is putting me in a box. I'm having to follow all these rules. And one of my favorite phrases is structure frees creativity. Structure frees creativity. And so when you are structured, you're going to get so much more out of that. So just let the structure work for you. And it does. Again, it's that J curve where they drop a little bit, or they're like, I didn't get any creativity out of that meeting. But when they stick to the discipline, oh my gosh, now there is a discipline for creativity.
Yeah.
It sounds backwards, but it really does work.
So, there you go. You just took your sweater off. There you.
I get hot.
I didn't know. I thought you were like putting a cardigan or a blanket on, and then all of a sudden, I thought you were doing a magic trick. Yeah.
Sorry.
So what are some of the key traits in great leaderships, or in great leadership, that you've identified, or management or entrepreneurial? Like, what are some of the key traits that you see people can be successful on these systems and have the courage to accept, the discipline and the courage to get past their fears and to work together? Because you're not talking about one single person that you work with. You work with, on average, what are your teams, 5 to 7 or something?
Yeah, 3 to 7.
Okay.
That's the team size. Yep. And I work with up to 25 at a time.
Okay.
But I've done this 80 times. I've
Yeah.
worked with 80 teams.
So what are those traits in the leadership that you see of being the most successful, like in the whole team, the management, the visionary, all those things? Like, what are the things that come together that makes the Super Bowl winning team?
So I really like the way you ask this question, because you took it from the courage mindset into the individual's traits. So thank you for that, because I always love it when my brain is challenged to put the two together. So I just jotted a few down that came to me. And one of the first traits that I see in a successful team member, a successful trait, is humility. Humility. I have had in the past teams walk in here and they just have a huge ego and a shell. And the ego, in the way that we talk about ego as it is a shell, right? Now, if we, I've got a degree in psychology. So if we get into that, your ego is your protector. It protects you. So think about that. It's a shell.
Like insecurities or whatever.
Yeah. And everybody's got one. It's a mask. It's what you want the rest of the world to see. So when they walk in here with this shell, and it's the opposite of humility, it's just really hard to help the team go through those levels. It's really easy to teach them the mechanics.
Yeah.
Right. Push the green button, pushed, done. You got it. But that's not what EOS is all about. It's about guiding you on your journey. So those individuals who have the shell on it's really hard for them to be on a team. And if they don't change, that means like take off the kimono.
Yeah.
Let us who you are. And, even if you're dysfunctional, who is not dysfunctional? We all are.
Yep.
If you don't take off the shell, Kevin, it's really hard for them to connect. And when we don't connect, it's really hard to solve issues together.
Yeah.
We get a lot of politically correct stuff, flowery language, people trying to posture or be, politicians.
Yeah.
I don't work with those teams anymore because I'm just at the place in my practice where I can see them coming, and I'm like, oh, that's not who Jill is. So,
yeah. So do you have, how many clients do you think that you turn down in a year that you don't necessarily say, like, I don't want to work with you, or just I don't have time?
Right. Well, here, so me, I'm bold and blunt. That's part of why you love me. I actually do tell them that.
Yeah. You say, hey,
I say, here's, I use my skills, but I say, here's what I'm observing. Here's how I'm going to run the sessions. If I see that in session, this is what I will do.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do that? And they will say, oh, whoa, I don't know that we're ready for that. And so I say that if you're not ready for that, then you and I working together is a waste of my time and your money.
Mm-hmm.
So here's some books you can read. Read the book and download the tools and do it yourself if you need to. Most EOS implementers are very similar to me, so another coach might not work for them, but EOS in general just might not work for them. And the number of people who call me, because EOS is very popular right now, that I have that conversation with, probably 15 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that humility, what if the, of the 3 to 7 people, let's say a 5, the basic team has humility. There's some in there, but the person who is really the visionary, or the person who called you, the guy who, or the girl who's going to be writing you the check, just doesn't have it. I mean, how important is that for the person who is really investing in this system for their team to be the one with the humility, and then can break it down through into that leadership team?
It's 100% critical.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that your audience kind of hears what I'm saying, because when I say it, it can sound very judgmental.
Okay.
As in, if you call me, if you're not humble and you have a big ego, I turn you away. That's not how I hope people are reading this, because what I look for in that call is that glimmer of willingness. It's the willingness to be open, honest, vulnerable, to become humble. I can work with that all day long, but when you don't want it, then I can't want it for you.
So what makes people call you wanting to change, or seeing this system and thinking, but they have a big ass ego and don't really want to change? Like that, to me, like when I called you, I think I was as authentic as I could be.
You were. I loved that phone call. I wish I had it recorded.
I remember exactly where I was. Me and my family were in Colorado, and we were about to get on a train, and you called me back, or we had a scheduled call, and I'm just like, I wanted this help for me and the accountability and all that stuff for the team. So it's like, I don't understand why a person would even call you if they don't feel they need the change, or could it be direction from someone else, or from like, how does that typically play out?
Well, so entrepreneurs are really good at trying things.
Yeah,
they're really good at trying things. What we also know about entrepreneurs, a lot of them are what we would call like a quick start in Kolbe language. If you've taken the Kolbe assessment, it's a quick start. So we say, oh my gosh, that might help, and we pick up the phone and we call.
Yeah.
And you've done that. You've been listening to a podcast before. Yeah. I think I sent you a link once, and you're like, I'm in. I bought it.
Yeah. Every time I meet with Chris Powers, who yes. I have to make a note. I write something down of something that they've changed to, and then when I get back to my office, I just have to scratch it out. I'm like, because he's always he's always into the newest, coolest, latest stuff, and he's innovative and a pioneer, and he's just a smart person. And so I'm like, well, if they're doing that, maybe we need to go check that. And I've had to learn to just go, no, hang on, let's just stick with what we're doing, what we know. Let's stay consistent. and all those things. So yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah. So I think sometimes they call because they've heard of it. They hear a speaker, they listen to a podcast like this one and think EOS, it works for Freedom Power Sports.
Yeah.
Freedom Power Sports.
Power sports.
Power Sports. It works for Freedom Power Sports. So I'm gonna call.
Yeah.
And so what I do, and this is really my sales process, is I slow it all down.
Okay.
Slow it all down. And I even had to do this with you too. I remember.
Yeah.
You're like, let's get started. Let's get started. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna take a deep breath.
Yeah.
We gotta slow it down because you remember our first 3 sessions.
Yeah.
You open up a can of worms.
It was tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. And if you start, could you imagine starting like 2 or 3 sessions and then stopping? That can of worms is out there, and where are you going to put it?
Yeah.
So I think it's in my humble opinion, could somebody call me and say, I want to start tomorrow? I'm like, great, I've got a day open.
Yeah.
Come on over. Could I do that? Well, sure, and take their money. But I feel it like that would be doing way more harm than good. So I slow it all down and really say, do you understand what this is? It's a 2-year process. This is not a seminar. It's not a quick fix. And so that's when they either open up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, maybe this is the thing I've been looking for.
Yeah.
And I slow it down. Or they're like, oh, wait, I kind of wanted quick fix.
Yeah.
And get out of there.
Yeah. That's, I think, one of the lessons that I heard from you, that if someone's listening to this, and this is just a maturing process for most people, most entrepreneurs and leaders, is like, for me, I'm just learning to slow things down myself. But if people can learn to not have the flavor of the month and try to look for those quick fixes, they never really work. I mean, it's like the get rich quick schemes, and they just don't work. There's nothing that's going to fix things overnight. It's a commitment, right, to a process. It's picking something and staying committed to it. And I think that I'm 100% sure that this EOS system and your coaching has been the most consistent thing that Freedom has ever committed to, that has to do with like bettering us, not just like a tool or a marketing tool. Like, we've done a lot of things consistent, but as far as how do we get better as a organization, this has been the most consistent thing we've ever done.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah. And it feels good. It's made a huge impact, to us and how to slow things down. And when I hear you say that about, like, if you would just let people jump in, if we would have quit after 3 sessions, it would have opened up a big can of worms. It would have left things in a little bit disarray. I mean, those were hard discussions that we had to really identify the leadership team and what that looked like and what roles. There was 2 individuals that I initially thought were going to be a part of that ended up not, but they're still a huge part of our organization. And even today, I'm like, I miss feeling like not having them as a part of it, but I understand the system and why it works the way that it does. So what are the biggest mistakes that you see leadership, management, the entrepreneur make? What are the biggest mistakes that you see leadership, management, entrepreneurs make? And are those different in the roles that I called out? Like, can the entrepreneur themselves or the leadership team, management, can they all have different areas where they make big, like where they have like issues or mistakes that they may make that has an impact that kind of waterfalls down into the organization? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I do. I have one big one sticks out that I see teams. I'm going to call it, they are held hostage by.
Yes.
This one big thing. And, in EOS, we have 6 key components that we always focus on. And one of them is people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I were to, distill all my teams over the 600 sessions and say, what's the one big mistake that I see them making, which mistakes to me are not bad things. It's right. It's a
punch
mistake.
In the face. Yeah.
That's right. It's the punch in the face that pays us twice. So they learn a lot from this. So I don't know that I want to take the lesson away, but here it is. They are held hostage by keeping the wrong people in the seats for too long.
Yeah.
For too long. So, and the language we use here in the Traction First Session room is when you have a wrong person, that just means they do not fit your culture.
Yeah.
But even they might be doing a good job, they might be hitting their numbers. We call them terrorists here.
Yeah.
We call them terrorists because they're really, it's as if they're holding have a bomb strapped to their chest.
Yeah.
And they're saying to you, I double dog dare you to fire me. You can't. I bring in too much revenue, or I hold too much knowledge, or the customers love me too much. And what the leadership teams do is they sit here in my room and they look at each other fearful. And they're like, they'll say phrases like, we have no choice.
Yeah.
Or we're afraid that if we let Bob go, Bob's going to take all the clients with him.
Yeah.
Or Bob's going to trash talk us on social media. And they have all of these fears bubbling around their head. And if I could scream from the rooftops, those fears only come to fruition like 1% of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time when you let that terrorist go out of your organization, everyone's a big word. Most of the people look at you and your company and say,
it was about time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They're watching you, the entrepreneur. They're saying, when are you going to do something about this? And it's not just your people who are watching you. It's your customers.
Yep.
It's your vendors. It's your trade partners, your industry. It's like, why is he, Kevin goes out and talks about his great culture, but he has this asshole working for him.
Yep.
And
it
that's
doesn't align.
One big one, keeping those people too long,
like
they're held hostage.
Yeah, that is a big one. That was one of the biggest ones that we're continuing to learn more and more, is around people and, being held hostage, that, they have to fit your core values. They have to fit your culture, and compliant. I like the word compliant. They have to be compliant to your processes and all those other things.
Yeah.
When you think about, so I've been thinking about this a lot. I just went to San Antonio for Thanksgiving, and driving up and down 35 headed south to San Antonio, you pass literally like 400 McDonald's, like 250 Walmarts, 1,000 Walmart trucks going up and down the road, 400, Chick-fil-A's. And I've got this organization. We've expanded to, 14 locations over, several years, and I want to grow again, but I have this, it's a fear a little bit of like at what point do you sacrifice all of these things that we're trying to implement and what EOS stands for, customer satisfaction, your culture to perfection? At what point does someone, because I don't believe that Sam Walton, the way he started his organization, or the core values that they preach, or the customer service they preach, it's not happening at every store all the time. You know what I mean? There's like, at what point do you have to get, like, how does a person get past that fear of saying, it's a constant work in progress? No, it never is everything going to be working all the time. Is that?
So that when, Kevin, if you were calling me right now and asking me that question as your coach,
yeah,
I would slow you down.
Okay.
And I would say, first of all, Kevin, and this is how you get over that fear, Kevin, what do you want?
Yeah.
Because at the heart of all of the entrepreneurial operating system is getting business owners, entrepreneurs, everything they want out of their business.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes to get over that fear, you go back to your purpose, your why.
Yeah.
And I know you love your people and the opportunities you give your people. And so holding on to that is, if I could, if we have 30, massive dealerships,
yeah.
What kind of opportunity is out there? And by letting yourself then lead with positivity,
yeah,
instead of fear, that culture that you drive by leading with positivity is going to be the fuel.
Yeah.
Again, no pun intended. Yeah. The fuel that gets that culture duplicated throughout those 30 dealerships.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the theory of it, but here's the big part. You do it one dealership at a time.
Yeah.
You do it one dealership at a time. If you go, 50 more tomorrow,
Yeah.
then that's where
You go
you're
through
going to
the pain. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to drop a ball. You're one human being. You're a massively awesome human being.
Well, thank you.
But you're one human being with a great leadership team, but we don't have the resources of a Walmart.
Yeah.
So we do one kick-ass dealership at a time.
That's great advice. So, just because I know, how much time do you have that you're comfortable with? How much?
Oh, I'm on the clock with you until 3:00. I think.
Okay, I think we just booked to have enough time. So I just want to make sure you're not in any hurry.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So,
I'm here.
So what is the most important thing that someone starting a business should focus on early that gets missed because they are just like trying to get started and they may not feel like they have the money or the time to invest? Like what are some of the things that you see or have seen with, all your experience that people miss that they should focus on early? Because a lot of people, I think, listening to this podcast are early in their entrepreneur journey, or maybe trying to think about taking that leap of faith and stuff like that. That's the most feedback I've gotten is from people wanting to take that leap of faith, or they're early in their journey. What's that big miss?
So so I'm glad that you gave me some clarity on this question, because for people who are wanting to take their leap,
yep.
The first thing I would ask them to do is to just consider, are you a true entrepreneur?
Okay.
Are you a true entrepreneur? Because there are people out there, Kevin, who have been sold on this idea of being an entrepreneur, that it's glamorous.
It's so glorified right now.
Yeah, it's glorified right now. I want to be my own boss because I don't want a boss. Guess who my boss is, Kevin? I'm an entrepreneur. My boss is my assistant, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Into my calendar. Oh, I have a boss.
Yeah.
My boss is you.
Yeah.
Right. When you book a day, I am there. I don't go, well, I'm not going to work today.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing is, please don't, if you're thinking of taking this leap, please don't be caught off, mesmerized or convinced that this is an ideal life for you.
Yeah.
Gino Wickman just wrote a brand new book. So here goes a plug for his brand new book.
Okay.
And it's called The Entrepreneurial Leap.
Okay.
And in that book, he states that there are 6 essential traits that you must have. And he is such a hard ass about this. He's like, you don't have to have 5 out of 6.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of tap your toe into 4 of them. You have to absolutely have all 6 of these traits before you're going to go out and be successful.